You mentioned that it hasn't happened since, and there are some war zones in some very important historical areas going on at the moment. I wondered if there's still military monuments men still working today in the military, pointing out places in Syria and Afghanistan that are historical sites not to bomb.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. Look, I wish we could figure out ways to end conflicts, but I'm the kind of guy that says, if you put your mind to it, anything's possible. But that is an area that I will say we're not going to succeed with in my lifetime anyway. So we have to figure out how to do a better job protecting these cultural treasures. These things that are here at National Gallery London, these things that are in Syria, they belong to all of us. They may be in a particular place, but they're part of our civilization and heritage as people of the world. They've survived not by accident. People that came before us risked their lives, some lost their lives, to preserve them for future generations. I think that's a responsibility we all have to somehow get engaged and do a better job. I'm not advocating that we put troops into a country to try and protect cultural treasures. And so Syria presents the most immediate, painful situation to watch. But these things happen in Cairo just a few weeks ago. Some nut jobs tried to blow up the police station and didn't take into account across the street was one of the great museums of Islamic art and culture, which was severely damaged accidentally. Mali, the Taliban comes through and destroys important Islamic manuscripts because they considered them to be blasphemous. So this problem continues to this day. What can we do? Well, we're not using technology very well. We have drones that Amazon's trying to consider how to use to deliver packages. Maybe we could put cameras in those things and start taking photographs of all these bad guys in tanks that are ordering shelling of important Roman columns that are 3,000 years old that belong to all of us, again, by the way. And hold these people accountable and prosecute them. Yes, UNESCO and World Heritage organizations are responsible for protecting these things, but the fact of the matter is, in my view, despite enormously good intentions and a lot of hard work by those people, it's not getting the job done. And one thing I would like to see is I'd like to see our president, I'd like to see world leaders of all countries, but I'd like to see our president stand up and restate what President Roosevelt and General Eisenhower said during World War II, with the great support of Prime Minister Churchill, I should add, that our countries, the Western Allies, will protect and respect cultural treasures so much as war allows. If it comes down to the lives of our men and women or an object, the lives of our men and women count more, but too often times that's used as an excuse of convenience. And so this is the standard that we used during World War II, and I dare say as difficult as it's been for all of us in Afghanistan and Iraq, and with the failings of primarily the United States in the aftermath of the looting of the National Museum of Iraq, where this great legacy was completely forgotten and the leadership didn't make it a priority, that's the standard we need to get back to.
I think we have time just for one more question. That's over here. Yeah?
Hi. Can I just ask about the movie itself? And I mean, there's always a difficult line between complete historical accuracy and artistic license. You've got to make a movie, and you can't tell the whole story. I mean, how closely were you involved? How happy are you with the film in those terms?
Well, of course, the film's based on my book. I was a consultant to George Clooney and Grant Heslov as they wrote the script. Was on location several times. I think we need to make a couple of points. First of all, from my perspective, again, I'm not looking at this as author, historian, I'm looking at this as messenger. I want to reach the broadest audience possible. The overarching principles of the story as it happened and as I wrote it in The Monuments Men is intact. People that go see this film are going to know that this was an American and British-led operation. It had never been attempted before, that the effort was initially protection of monuments, that it involved and evolved into the greatest treasure hunt in history, trying to find, and the monuments officers were successful in finding some 5 million objects. Get your head around that, 5 million objects, 4 million or so of which were stolen, and then returned all of them at the end of the war, in great contrast to what Soviet forces did, with some degree of understanding why. I mean, 25 million Soviet citizens killed, 17.5 million citizens, 7.5 million soldiers. No basis in law for that, but we can't talk about what the Soviets took without acknowledging those facts. And then we address a great moral issue. Is art worth a life? Is it worth risking your life for the cause of trying to preserve our civilization and cultural treasures? This is really at the crux of the story. In my opinion, since it's not a documentary and it's a dramatic telling of the story, adjustments to timelines, adjustments to other elements of the story, what happened in any particular salt mine, I think are really irrelevant, because if someone wants to know all the gory details, please, by all means, buy my book and read it. The details are in there. But what I'd rather do is have the most exciting, engaging story to enlist the support of the audience. And one final thing I should say in conclusion to your question, the names were changed not out of ignorance about what monuments officers did by name, like Ronald Balfour, whose family members I have talked to off and on for many years. This was one of the great monuments officers who was killed, one of two. The other was an American, Walter Hutchhausen, one of two monuments officers killed during combat doing their job. In March 1945, Ronald Balfour was killed. We didn't change the names out of ignorance of what they did. We changed the names out of respect for who they were. Ronald Balfour did not have a drinking problem. Ronald Balfour had a very distinguished record. It was enormously painful to these monuments officers when he was killed, the first of the two. But when the filmmakers made decisions to make adjustments to the characters for dramatic storytelling purposes, I insisted, and they completely agreed, to honor these men and women by making this adjustment and respecting that. And at the same, so we can say these characters are inspired by, but if we're trying to get into the nitpicking of which person did what and all of this, you know, we're losing the sense of the fact that we can't tell the story of all 350 monuments officers. We're telling the story of 6 or 7 who are really emblematic of this whole group of people and their great heroic service.
Robert, thank you very much indeed for joining us
you.
this morning.